Hey guys, Matthew here, and welcome to my first impression of the 3.14 Ultimatum League. I want to look at it, as always, from an economy standpoint, and there's been a lot of changes economically, like a lot of things to talk about, both as part of the official announcement, but also especially, I would say, as part of the Q&A at the end of the stream, so that if you weren't there for the stream, you wouldn't know about. And that's especially the stuff that I want to focus on, because I think it's literally game changing, meta changing. A lot of things are going to be changing with Ultimatum. But again, you're probably going to be, as always, flooded with tons of people just reading through the entirety of the announcement. I don't want to be doing that. You know, you can obviously go and read that by your own. I want to look at it from a bird's eye view. I want to try to look at it from inside out and look at the bigger picture. So that's what I want to be doing with this video. So again, there's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Real quickly though, the Ultimatum League mechanic itself, at least to me, seems like kind of cool, but not like game changing, you know. It's just kind of like a ritual, but instead of choosing your rewards after every wave, you basically get to double or nothing over and over again. And you're gonna have some things that are actually pretty cool on the double or nothings. For example, you know, being able to sacrifice 5 exalts to maybe get up to 10 exalts, you know, stuff like that. I don't know how hard it's going to be. Probably busted at the start, and then they're going to over nerf it, and it's going to become ridiculous, and it's going to stay like really easy for the rest of the league, and then next league it's going to be actually balanced. That's typically how it goes. But again, it doesn't look like a bad league, but I don't think that 3.14 is about the league mechanic or Ultimatum itself. I think it's about everything surrounding it, and that's what I'm really hyped about. The same way that last league in Ritual wasn't really all that exciting, but what it brought to the game, Echoes of the Atlas and the huge expansion, that was, I think, the bread and butter, and that's what people were really excited about. So we're in the same situation here, where it's not about the micro of the league, it's more about the macro or the meta around the league itself. Okay, so let's get into it. Obviously, you know, there's the thing about you get random reward, you get to basically make the encounter harder to get a better reward, and you know, you just get to scale that reward over and over again. I think it's up to 10 times. Yep, you also have these double or nothing, which are basically going to be pretty interesting. So for example, you can see this one requires like 4 nurse cards, and you can double them, so you would get 8 nurse cards back if you're able to complete the encounter, right? So double or nothing, whatever. You've got some okay uniques, I guess. It didn't really seem too grain breaking. The helmet was pretty interesting because they said something about being able to corrupt it into another random helmet, unique helmet, once it already had the corruptions on that. Interesting stuff. Obviously, though, we'll have to wait and see. There's going to be this Val Reliquary Key, and that I think is going to be for the those 1%ers chasing those extreme crazy items. It's basically the Reliquary Key for anybody who played a long time ago, where you would open up the chest and you get a Legacy Unique. Now, the difference here is that the Legacy Uniques that you're going to be able to get are only uniques that are from the Val, which means, you know, a Headhunter, no. A Comb's Heart, no. But there's still some very interesting uniques. So for example, here we have Aziri's Reflection, we have Aziri's Promise, the Flask, we have what I think is going to be the biggest thing is obviously going to be Aziri's Acuity if we actually get the Legacy ones, which gives you instant leech, because yeah, that thing's kind of broken. That's really strong. So yeah, new skills in regards to blood, cool stuff, but this is where it becomes really good. The reward improvements. And this is kind of what I want to make the focus of this video about. And it's about lowering the ceiling of the 0.1%ers and hiring the floor of the average player. What that means is less discrepancy between the ultra rich and the ultra poor. Now, there's still going to be massive discrepancy. The ultra rich are still going to be able to be ultra rich, and the ultra poor are still going to be ultra poor. It's the same thing in the real world. It's going to stay the same. But GGG is making strides to trying to make this less of a discrepancy, and I think that they are doing a great job with this league and some of the changes that I'm going to be talking about here. After that, I'm going to explain this whole thing about the ceiling and the floor, and also what that means, or at least the way I look at it. Okay, so rewards improvements. First things first, you are now going to be able to get all league specific items in every single zone in the game, meaning you could literally be farming a level 50 zone, you know, going through the campaign, and boom, you drop an actual headhunter. That could happen. Chris has also confirmed that headhunter is not getting nerfed in any way, shape, or form, or at least in 3.14 league. We don't know going forward, but in this specific league, headhunter is unchanged. But of course, they are going to be nerfing some stuff and buffing some stuff, so obviously we can speculate what that means. Maybe self-curse nerf, who knows? We'll have to wait and see the patch notes and the manifesto for that. Obviously, they've put orbit binding and some new Atlas specific bases, and some veiled chaos, which basically is like a chaos but gives you a veiled modifiers. Not game breaking, but I do think that it's pretty cool that now you'll be able to get, you know, any unique in the entire game as part of the regular loot table, because that also means that you'll be able to chance scour or ancient orbs basically even in your hideout. You know, so you don't need Nemesis anymore, which means that if you're putting Nemesis on your map device just to farm headhunters, now you'll have the ability to put, for example, Beyond for additional juice, which is really cool. All right, improvements number 2 to the lab. Really, really cool. Something that's been asked for a really long time. Now, when you finish lab, you will have a choice of 3 different helmet enchants. So that means you are basically going to get 3 helmet enchants, but not only that, you're also going to get a glove and a boots enchant. So you're going to get 5 different enchants that you can choose from every single lab. And if you're doing Gift of the Goddess, that is a total of 35. Now, I don't really think I would consider gloves to be too interesting. So that is still 28 enchants every single Gift of the Goddess that you're able to get. 75% of those being for helmets, 25% of those being for boots. So things like pen boots, a lot more easy to get because you'll be able to get them as you're also working for your helmet enchants. What that means is that again, lowering the ceiling, raising the floor, it means that the top 1% lab runners, the ultra sweaty lab runners, you know, the racers and all that, those guys are going to be making less currency because there's going to be less people who need their services, and obviously less demand for certain specific enchants because they're going to be a lot easier to get. And for the average player who just doesn't want to farm, you know, make an entire build around lab farming, but who wants to be able to maybe farm one of a given few different enchants for his own specific build, they will be able to do that now. And I think that's pretty cool. Not only that, they are changing the way that the reward system for winning lab works. So if you've ever tried or looked into lab racing, it used to be that the reward for winning lab every single day was a jewel, the mastery jewels, which are the ones for attribute stacking. And those jewels were basically dictated by the price of whoever was winning lab, and since it was the same person winning lab every single day, the jewels were basically non-existent because they were just being hoarded. Now the jewels are actually going to be a random drop from the chests at the end, which means you don't have to race anymore to get them. And I think that is also really, really neat because that means that it's no longer going to be hoarded by one individual who's been banned multiple times. So good job, GGG, on that. Okay, improvements number 3, that's basically improvements to Betrayal. Now, they're changing a decent amount of stuff about Betrayal, T4 rewards from the actual Betrayal Mastermind. So what they're trying to do with that, it seems, is that they want people to actually farm the Betrayal board entirely and the safe houses and the Mastermind, instead of setting up their boards with, you know, a million different green and red lines on there. You know, they actually want people to complete it and do the entirety of it. Is that going to be the case? I don't know, but at the same time, that flood has been nerfed significantly because now you're able to upgrade your breachstones via the blessings for those specific breachstones, which means pure Chiulas are no longer require you to farm that fled in Betrayal, and I think that's probably where the bulk of the money came from. So interesting to see how Betrayal is going to pan out. But yeah. Okay, next we have improvement systems on a lot of different things. They're changing essences, they're buffing them a little bit, they're changing apprentice coins, they're basically adding a lot more uniques to the pool, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. Actually, that might be a nerf, and Kadiro's already not that great. They're changing abyss jewels, adding some new abyss jewels, and also the only way to get Stygian Vises now is apparently going to be going through the Abyssal Depths. So because of that, they're actually making Abyss something that people are actually going to want to be doing again, because I think people have been completely ignoring Abyss for a long time now. So yeah, some more improvements, but realistically, some of these actually seem like more nerfs than anything else. But here's one that I actually really like. You are now going to be able to itemize your temple. Itemizing temple is really good because it prevents the need to go through different, for example, communities to be able to try to sell or buy temples, which reduces or actually completely removes scamming as part of the equation. So if you're somebody who likes to farm alpha but doesn't like to gamble in the temple, you can just itemize your temple when it's over and just sell it. So people are going to buy them for the rooms that are in there. Obviously, there's going to be a value to specific rooms, and then you're going to add all these valuable rooms that you have together and put a price on the temple. Now, I wonder how it's going to work when it comes to which room are actually like opened. Now it does seem to say open rooms and obstructed rooms. So I guess that means that all the ones that are opened are at least connected to something, even if it's not like the most optimal route, but that's probably the most important thing, right? So really cool, this change over here. Okay, next we have more improvements to blighted maps. They are buffing it, so blighted maps are actually going to apply quantity to the maps now, which was not the case. People used to run blighted maps just white with oils on them. Now they're actually going to be dropping, you know, the mods on the map. The quantity is actually going to apply to the chests in the map to a 1 to 4, right? So if you have 100 quantity, it's like 25% more quantity from every chest, which is actually pretty noticeable if you're able to farm juiced up blighted maps. Which is cool. There's some new incubators, there's some new catalysts, there's some new scarabs. One thing that's pretty cool though is a tainted oil, which is apparently going to be very rare. This is going to allow you to anoint a corrupted amulet. So let's say you drop a talisman, which has +1 curse on it or something like that. Or let's say you vow an amulet and you get +1 curse. You'll be able to actually use a tainted oil to get +2 curse on your amulet now. And this is really cool because we had a lot of items like, for example, the divination card, I can't remember, Etched in Blood or whatever it's called. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it gives you the Xoth amulet that was double corrupted, if I remember correctly, or even single corrupted. But because it was corrupted, you couldn't anoint it, and you also couldn't catalyze it. Now you'll actually at least be able to anoint it. So some of these divination cards which give you corrupted items actually have some value now, which is cool. More reward improvements. They're basically reworking a lot of the boss rewards. So for example, Ziri's getting +1 to all Val skills on the chest, which is actually insane, to be honest. So yeah, they're reworking some rewards to bosses and all that. I think that's pretty cool, because some of these bosses honestly have been I guess a little old for a while now. Okay, so that's pretty much it in terms of the changes. Now, let me give you my interpretation of these changes throughout I was talking earlier. Now, we're going to be looking at this magnificent drawing that I drew on Paint on my stream today. And I want to explain what the effect is of this idea of lowering the ceiling and raising the floor. Okay, so let's just say these are arbitral number first off. So they're not necessarily exactly what it's going to be. These are just random, but just to illustrate the purpose. So let's just say the ceiling in 3.13, was 50 exalts per hour, which means that at most people were able to make 50 exalt per hour using some methods of making currency. And the floor, which is the lowest possible amount of currency you can make, was basically none, right? I hear it every single league. People will come into my stream and be like, yo, I play 3-4 hours a day. I play 10 hours a day, and I feel like I never make any currency. I've never had more than 5 exalts. I don't drop exalts, you know, and I hear it all the time. So the floor is basically like nothing. All right, now what all these changes that I just mentioned are bringing is that they are raising the floor, okay? That's the goal of all of these improvements. But now the thing is, these improvements, while they do raise the floor, they do raise the minimum amount of currency that people will be making. They don't have any effect on the maximum amount of currency that people can make. So if people are making 50x and then people are making nothing, and then those people who are making like nothing start making a few exalts an hour, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, something at least, right? it still doesn't change the fact that compared to the people making 50x an hour, they are making like no money at all, right? Like they're making very, very little currency. Their buying power is essentially non-existent. So GGG also needs to lower the ceiling of maximum currency per hour, and they actually decided to tackle the issues. It almost looks like they went through my 0.1% series, and everything that had some sort of gray area or broken mechanic was completely changed. So there's 3 different things that we need to talk about the most. The first thing is that they are changing delving. Now, delving was actually not part of my 0.1% series, but I did make a series about delving though, and delving was one of the best currency making method in the entire game for a very, very long time now. Somewhere in top 1, top 2, top 3. Amongst, you know, the crafters and the flippers. That's how good delving was. People making a mirror per day, multiple mirrors per day even, through delving. Now what they said is that delving is going to be more rewarding early than it was. So for example, maybe you didn't used to see any sort of T1 fossils until like depth 1000, 1500. Now you might be able to start seeing them around like, I don't know, 500, 800, 1000, and seeing them, of course, more often as well. Not just seeing them, but seeing them more often. And the people who are deep delving, which I'm guessing is going to be maybe 4, 5, 6K and above, those people are going to be getting less rewards than they've been getting. Now, the thing is, those people are making so much money right now that you could probably still cut down half of what they're making, give them half as many fossils, and they would still be some of the richest players in the game. So they don't really have you know, any sort of reason to complain. They're still going to be rich. They're still going to be able to afford everything they need, but the ceiling is definitely going to be lower, and the ceiling or the floor is going to be higher for people who want to just delve, but not dedicate their entire existence to delving 20 hours a day, like some of the actual delvers do for the first few weeks of a league. And I'm not even exaggerating. The next issue was people who were beast farming with multiboxing, something that I was trying to bring a lot of attention to with the 0.1% series. So what that was essentially people using multibox, using a bunch of alt accounts and getting 6 times the amount of beasts for their actual beast farming. So then they could sell like 6 beasts instead of 1. So if they were getting 1 split, they were getting 6 split. Now, we did not hear anything regarding the change to that. So they didn't say that it's only going to apply to the map owner for beast farming. They didn't say that you'll have to be within close proximity or anything like that. So technically, there hasn't really been a direct nerf to the method, but the biggest nerf that happened is that you will no longer be able to split an item that has already been split. So if you take an item, let's say you take a 6 white socket regalia and you split it, both the item that has been split and the item that you split now have the split tag, and if it has a split tag, it can't be split anymore. So what that means, and it also, can't be imprinted either, which means you can't just like imprint, split it, and then imprint it back. It's going to do like a fractured item. It's not going to let you imprint it back. So because of that, bases that people were having monopolies on are now completely gone, right? It's going to be impossible to have a monopoly on blue bases unless GGG somehow mess it up. And you know, you're able to remove the split tag through one method or another. If you're able to remove that tag, it's going to be a bit of a shit show, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping that they did it right. This again lowers the ceiling a lot. People who are making ridiculous amounts of currency through farming with multiple accounts, multiple alts, now they have to basically they can still do that, but there's going to be a lot less demand, which technically should mean a drop in price, but also just not enough people who are out there trying to buy, you know, so many of these beasts anymore, which means more competition between all these different beast sellers. And in the end, what that means is that the price is going to drop to the point where it's no longer worth it for these people with multiple accounts to do that, because they'll probably find something better. And that means that for your average player who just wants to farm beast as a side thing while they're actually mapping or whatever, it's actually going to be a viable thing to be doing, because you'll be able to sell those beasts. Now, I'm really hoping that in the patch notes or in the manifesto, we got something in regards to the beasts only applying to the map owners. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I'd much rather it being in close proximity, because then it would actually encourage party play and people doing rotations, but it wouldn't hurt the people who want to play together. right? It's not about hurting party play. It's about making sure that it's not abusable. Because if you wanted to abuse it that way, you would have to basically manually control every single account. And at that point, it would be so time consuming that just wouldn't be worth it. Or I've been told by people, yeah, but what if, you know, people just run through the map, clear the map, and then whenever they find a map with like a split or an imprint beast, they just TP in all 6 accounts within close proximity. Yeah, it's doable, but again, it's so like time consuming, and it's so annoying that if people are willing to go that far, just let them do it, right? And the last thing outside of beast farming as well as delving change is going to be the witnessing change. And I think that's probably one of the biggest one. And that is that as I mentioned in my video where I said that, you know, multiboxing was a problem, I did mention witnessing. So now witnessing is only going to apply to the map owner for the Uncharted realms. So what that means is if you want to do, let's say, a feared invitation, you yourself are going to have to be the owner of the map of every single one of these encounters. You know, the Uber Adziri, the Shaper, the Elder, etc. You're gonna have to be the owner of all of those to be able to witness it, and then you'll be able to farm or go and do your feared invitation. But if you're doing it in a party, those other people in your party are not going to be able to get the witnessing done, but they'll still be able to come along with you if you're playing in a party. What that means is that people who are party playing for invitations, which I don't really think has ever really been a big deal. I do think that some people, you know, are going to be affected by this, but I think most people who are farming invitations are doing it by themselves, and if not by themselves, they're doing it with multiple accounts, because that's where the money really is when you're actually using multiple alt accounts to just basically get 7 times the value. So if you're able to do the feared with 5 alts, you're getting 7 times the value out of your encounters, right? You're getting 7 Adziris, you're getting 7 Cortex, because you're getting the initial one and then 1 for each of the subsequent invitation. So again, that's a change that was absolutely necessary. What that means is that, again, the ceiling gets dropped. So because the ceiling gets dropped for all of these different mechanics, which have been considered pretty much the top 3, I would say beast farming, invitation farming, and delving, it's that people are not going to be able to make anywhere near as much currency per hour on the top end. Now, why would you or I care about how much currency people can make on the top end? It might just sound like I'm just being a crybaby, and I'm like, yo, these people are making more currency than me, therefore that's a problem. That's not what it is, and a lot of people seem to be accusing me of looking at it this way, but that's not what it is. The reason for it, the biggest reason for it, at least my biggest reason for it, why I think it's a good thing to make sure that the ceiling is not as high, is actually what I've listed here. First thing, we're preventing monopolies. Now, whenever a small amount of people have a large amount of supply, they get to dictate the price. If they want to lower the price by 50% one day and then raise it by 150% the next day and cash out on the people who basically panic sold, they can do that. This is something that we see super often with fossil prices. The people who actually own the supply, the delving community, will literally get together, or not necessarily get together, but will literally just decide to drop the price of fossils, get people to panic sell, and then buy out the market and then raise the price, because they dictate the actual, they dictate the supply. And this is really bad in any economy. Monopolies are always bad. So by doing that, we are, lowering the ceiling and raising the floor, we are putting more people as part of the people who actually own a part of the supply. So if, more casual players who get to maybe, I don't know, depth 800 or 1000 or whatever, are able to get some, or their hands on some fractured fossils, it does mean more competition. It does mean that the market shares are not all in the hands of, you know, a very small group of people, which means it's harder for those group of people to actually have such a drastic effect or dramatic effect on the prices and, you know, make them swing. Something, again, that we saw with Fractured Fossil, even in Ritual League. We also saw it with the bloodstained fossils as well. My bad. We also saw it with the bloodstain. Now the bloodstain is not really because of the delvers themselves. I don't think so. It's probably mostly because of content creators realizing how strong they were. Okay, now another reason why I think this whole thing about ceiling lowering, floor raising, is that it prevents RMT. Now it actually prevents RMT in both cases. It prevents a lot of people from being able to RMT to sell because they're making a lot less currency per hour, so there's a lot less excess currency for them, so they have less of an effect on the RMT market when it comes to selling. And for the buyers, which are typically the people who make no currency, right? If you already know how to make currency, you're not going to be inclined to buying currency. For those people, they're less inclined to buy currency because they have a lot more methods of making currency which are actually viable, that they actually enjoy. Now, that's actually the next point, which is going to be removing a lot of stress from players. Now, this is not something that actually makes sense when you think about it. You're playing a video game. You're supposed to be having fun, right? The last thing you should be doing when you're playing a video game is being stressed about it. But the reality is that in the real world, that's not how that works. A lot of people who play PoE, and it's similar with other games, any sort of game which has some sort of economy, any sort of games where you're able to basically compare yourself to others, people will put a lot of stress on themselves for the fear of missing out, okay? They will basically stress out about being, or not currently being doing the I guess best possible thing that they could be doing. So for example, if you take this little example that I made here, there's method number A, B, and C of making currency. Method number A is 50x an hour, method number B is 20, and method number C is 5x an hour. You could literally just love method number C and you hate method number A, but you're putting stress on yourself. And this is something very common amongst the top 1%. Like, no kidding. I myself am a victim of this. You're putting a lot of stress to do the thing that is the best because otherwise there's the fear of missing out. And you disregard fun entirely. You're just going for whatever is the best. Now, if you're lowering the ceiling and you're raising the floor, method number A, for example, let's say is now 20x an hour, B is 15, and C is 12. If you love C and you hate A, technically, A is still significantly better, almost twice as good in method number C, but the margin is no longer within 10 times better. It's not even twice as good. So if you like number C a lot and you hate method number A enough, you are actually potentially at least going to consider or gravitate towards method number C, or at least maybe test it. You know, while if it was 50 to 5, which is 10 times, you would never even consider it, and you disregard fun entirely. So this removal of stress means that the people who are in the 1% that are legitimate players, right? I'm not talking about the people who do it entirely just currency driven because there's, you know, other reasons why they care about the currency, but I'm talking about the legitimate players who don't do anything shady. For those people who just care about making a lot of currency, now they can actually start thinking about, you know, what is actually more fun to me. And even if it's less, since it's at least somewhat comparable, it's something that they can actually do and not feel so much of a fear of missing out. And I think that's a really, really good thing when it comes to lowering the ceiling on currency per hour from some of these broken methods. And for the average player, right, who basically used to have no methods of making currency, now no matter what they're doing, literally no matter what they're doing, so long as they're actively just playing the game, everything they're doing is now actually netting them more currency because there is more value. There's been an improvement in literally every single thing. So it's not like they only improved one thing, because if they improved only one thing, then everybody starts doing that one thing, and then all of a sudden it's just as bad as it used to be. They improved literally every aspect of the rewards that you had in the game with pretty much every single league mechanic that you encounter, which means no matter what you enjoy the most, now it's actually better than it used to be. So if you were making 2 to 3x an hour, maybe now you'll be making 5 or 6. So again, the floor is being raised. Everybody is going to be making more currency. Which again, I think is a really, really good thing. It means that the average player is happier. So that's pretty much my analysis of the 3.14 upcoming league changes. Now, again, the ultimatum, Didn't talk about it much. I do think it looks cool, but that's about it. And that pretty much concludes my analysis. So before I go, as always, I want to say a huge thank you to my supporters. So Flame Scorpion, Richard, Willie, Alex, Jordan, Emil, Raymond, Tim, Scott, Lost with the Map, Grimoire, Nathaniel, Kremis, Justin, Kevin, the other Justin, So Nice, Axel, Mercury, and Bizen, as well as, of course, anybody who wishes to remain anonymous and anybody else who has supported me in the past. Special thank you to everybody in this list over here. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.